All right, so these purple lines, I'm going to act like these are my axes. So y-axis, x-axis. On number one, we're working with a triangle. And the first thing I want you to do when you're trying to figure out what transformations you're working with, what transformations happened, I want you to think about the transformations there are. So we have translation, reflection, rotation, and dilation. And you shouldn't be, I don't think there's going to be any dilations. I'm not going to have you worry about that one. That one's not too hard to pick out. First one I want you to think about, though, is reflection. A lot of these are going to have reflections. Reflections and rotations are the first two I want you to think about. Did my triangle, so if I have this here, did it turn or flip in any way where it's not positioned the exact same, just moving around? So if it's just in the same position, if it hasn't turned or any way like this or anything like that, then we can just say it's a translation, and we just have to figure out how far it moved. So if it moved this many down and how far left, just counting units down and then to the left to the points match up. So if I count this point, I'd be like 1, 2, 3 down, 1, 2, 3 left. And that's where that point would be, and all the rest of the points would do the exact same thing. And I believe that's similar to number 1 on the homework. The next step, well, that's the last step. So if there is a different transformation first, so it isn't just the same position this way. So if it didn't do any turns, that's what you do. If it does do a turn, so let's say a reflection or rotation would happen then. So if it starts doing stuff like this, or is in down here somewhere like this, changes is I'm trying to think of the word. It changes the way it's oriented. If it changes the way it's oriented, so it's not facing up anymore, it's facing down, or it's been turned, then we know we're dealing with a rotation or reflection. And that's the first thing I want you to worry about before you start worrying about translations. And all I want you to do at this point is get that thing oriented the same as it is at the end of it. So let's say, I'm going to cut another one out. Let's say our shape is now like this. It's down here somewhere, but you can tell it's not going to be the same. First thing I want you to do is reflect it, figure out where it is there, and then say you did a reflection over the x-axis, for example here. I reflected over the x-axis. I started up here, reflection over the x-axis, flips this thing upside down over this x-axis. Now that I have that, figure out where this one is, and then I had to do a translation, because I have it oriented the same as the end, and I translate it however far down it had to go, and however far left and right. If I do a reflection over the y-axis, it's going to flip this triangle over that way. Now, depending on how this is oriented in your image to start, if it's first like this, imagine it flipping each way. It just flips. That's reflections. A rotation is a little different. So if it's rotated, it's going to turn every 90 degrees. So if you end up with something like this, you know you have a rotation. If it's just turned, that's a rotation. A reflection, my triangle is going to end like this. Rotation, it's going to turn. And it's the same with any other shape. Turn 90 degrees. It's going to turn 90 degrees around that origin. All the way till it's back how it started. That's a 90, 180, 270, 360. So that's your rotations you have to worry about. Check for rotations and reflections first, then do your translations if you need them. Get it oriented the same as that ending shape. So if I have a shape over here like this, I can see, well, it's not a reflection, and I can't just translate, so I'm going to try rotation. Try rotation. And check those formulas on page 477. Those will help you. Once you know it's a rotation, check those. Get it rotated to the points that you have there after using that formula. Find those points you have, and then use the translation after that. I would even draw it in there to help you with that. And then use the translation after. So, reflections, flip, flip, flip. You could even do a reflection and a reflection instead of rotation, because that's the same. It's kind of the same as two reflections as a 180 rotation. So it's up to you. You can do different things, but I want you to focus on reflections flip my shape. rotations turn my shape, and if it's just oriented the same, I can just move it down and left or right and up or any position I need using the translation if it's oriented the same. If it starts doing different things like this, that's when you need to implement a reflection right away or a rotation, depending on how it changes. So that's just with triangles. I only want you to focus with triangles right now. So rotation, reflection, and if you want, you can cut out some pieces of paper just to help you think about it, because I like to be able to visualize the flipping and the rotating. So hopefully this helps, but I focus on reflections and rotations first if it's oriented differently. Then I focus on the translations. Translations is only if there's no orientation, I can do that right away. But reflections first or rotations, and then you can work on translations. I hope that helps. Keep emailing me if you have questions.